whenever you have something, a sign of what you're saying, where somebody just adds, a AI to a name or to a press release and their stock price goes up, that to me is one of the signs of nearing the top of a bubble, right?
Yeah.
When you go into a taxi and taxi drivers telling you about AI, then you're probably at the top of a bubble.
Yeah. So, welcome to another edition of the Big Bang Tech Report, and welcome to my co-host Alvin Wang Graylin. Hello, Alvin. Good to see
Hello,
you. How are
Jens.
you?
I'm very good. I'm looking forward to coming to Berlin.
Okay, yeah, in a few weeks. And autumn is coming. Autumn is coming. We are heading into a hot AI autumn. Agents are getting stronger, valuation are getting bigger, and China is moving very, very fast. And the bubble debate is getting louder and louder, more or less every day. So let's look what matters now, right now. Are you? Have you fastened your seatbelt?
I'm ready. Bring it.
Okay. So for years, tech companies fought for our attention. Now AI wants our trust. AI knows that, it remembers us, and it advises us. So my question to you, Guy, is, are we moving from attention to trust?
Well, yeah, I think this is, the last few years or the last, 10 or 20 years with social media, it's all about attention. And, it just anybody saying anything that grabs your attention, stays an extra second, makes an extra click, that's all people wanted. I think right now that essentially with AI, the content can be, creation can be free. Anything can, anything that you can imagine can be turned into something in a video or into any form that people want. So content is actually becoming commoditized.
Yeah.
Now it's really about whether or not people believe this is something real. This is from somebody they trust. So absolutely, I think the idea of moving from attention to trust is critical, because there was a recent report that came out. If somebody knows that something's coming from AI, the value immediately drops by like 95%. Right. So, essentially, because it's so easy to make content now, nobody values what AI creates. So it's the brand that you build behind it that gives it value.
But the problem is, if it is becoming emotional media, you trust it much more than maybe your family or your lawyer or somebody else, because you say right now, if Google says, okay, with Google Maps, go on left side, then on right side, you do it because you do not question it.
Yeah.
But if you ask, maybe I ask you, Alvin, give me some advice for Seattle, you will tell me, and I said, oh, I don't believe it. I will ask my AI. I will ask Claude if it is true. So
Yes.
at least I believe much more in the technique in Claude and AI than I believe in people. I believe in anything else.
Yeah, I think for informational lookup, you're absolutely right. There are people right now who essentially their entire day is being decided by AI. They ask AI everything, which, to be honest, I think is not necessarily healthy. It's essentially you're delegating your agency to these systems, and we're becoming less human and becoming less intelligent in some ways. There was some recent research that came out that was showing children these days, when they use AI, when they have AI assisted in their normal homework, when they do tests without the AI, their actually quality goes down significantly, and it just means that they're offloading their decision making and agency. And I think this is something that as parents we need to really think about, and even actually as adults, right? Like you're saying, if everything you go to Claude or to your Gemini to ask for a confirmation, you become overly dependent on technology. Yeah, we need to have enough understanding of of how the world works, so that we have common sense. We need to bring that back a little bit.
Do you believe that we need a regulation that young people shouldn't use it under 13 or 12 years, that they are,
I don't think you can control that, right? Because right now age verification is not really well done, and if you don't let young people 13 and under use it, this is one, actually, if it's used properly, it's one of the best educational tools out there. It's a way for children to accelerate their ability to understand things that would be very difficult. To ask is something like, take this very complex geopolitical problem, explain it to me like I'm 10. And for a child, they can do that and make it understandable in the language and in the concepts that they probably would be able to grasp. I don't think we want to take that away from children. But the key is really about the order of usage. Do you go to AI first for the answer, or do you think about it first and then say, hey, this is what I think. What am I missing? What did I get wrong? If you do it in that reverse order, I think children can get a lot out of the technology that augments what they didn't know versus replacing thinking.
But what do you think in a few years, what will a child of 12 or 11 years will say? My first boyfriend is Claude, or my first girlfriend is Alvin. What do you believe? I believe it's Claude.
Yeah, I unfortunately the systems are being trained in a way that they're rewarding engagement, right? The same way that social media was rewarding engagement, a lot of the AI systems are making their tools try to keep people on longer. And build more relationships. This is why, I don't know if you know, but in about a month ago, or maybe less than that, China enacted their anthropomorphic agent policy that essentially forbids Chinese AI models from creating boyfriend-girlfriend relationships.
Yeah.
So there was a couple models that was doing this, and they actually had to shut down. Because the government said you cannot do these services where you create relationships, personal relationships with your users.
Let's have a look at Google. For 20 years ago, Google gave us links. Until now, they are giving us links, and now agents, they give us results. I used to ask Google, where should I go for holiday on holiday? And I got my answer, not a real answer. I got a research results. Now an agent will say, okay, I would like to book your holiday, all included. And flights, hotel, everything will be there. And my question is, does Google have to kill search before someone else does it?
Well, in some ways, they've really embraced it. They've included AI into every aspect of your services now, right? It's kind of embedded. The strange thing, which I actually don't know why this is, but their search revenues have actually not gone down in the last year or so. I would have expected a sharp drop, because everybody I know is doing what you're saying, is that they really are not searching as much as they used to. I probably search maybe 1/3 as much as I used to, and versus going to an AI system and asking a question. So, but maybe it's because these search functions, the AI is actually allowing them to target better, so that they're getting better click through. So they're able to generate more per click or more per view than they used to, so they can maintain this. And I think this is really the trend, is that whether you're talking about the agents or you're talking about search, they're going to get more and more personalized. They're going to understand you better, and by making it more targeted, they will deliver a level of service that was not possible before. And I don't know if you probably have heard the Gemini has their personal intelligence, where they link to your email and your photos and in your browsers, and so they really know everything about you. And in some ways, they're also going to be able to do the purchase for you, right? So I think over time they will start to transfer more and more of their services to agent based services beyond just a pure lookup search. So, but I don't know how long it's going to take. It's actually taking the impact of AI on search revenues is surprising me in terms of how little that impact is.
Yeah, the first AI wave gave us answers, a lot of answers. The next wave does the work. We have AI researchers, AI writes, AI codes, and at least it takes action. So, are we moving from help me to do it for me?
I think that is definitely where things are going. And the more we allow these agents to integrate into our applications, the easier things will get. I mean, in fact, this morning we were talking about using your AI with your video editing, right? Something like that, where you can just say add this effect to this scene. That would not have been possible a year ago. And so the fact that these type of things are happening, we will definitely offload tasks, and conversation will actually be the interface that we will increasingly more have with our systems, our devices, versus using keyboards to type.
Hmm. Now, let's talk about money. I think, talk about money. Money, it's from Simply Red, a wonderful song. And right now, we see that, especially in Germany, all over the world, if you put AI on something, it is worth immediately something. And if you go to the stock market, you say, this is an AI company, it is worth much more than before. And so where are we right now? Do you see something that is overvalued, overrated? We have seen the dot-com bubble burst, the internet and the internet world, but now we see Amazon, we see Google really big. And are we very near to the bubble, to the burst of a bubble?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through, in my 30, 40-year career, multiple bubbles and multiple burstings. And whenever you have something, a sign of what you're saying, where somebody just adds, a AI to a name or to a press release and their stock price goes up, that to me is one of the signs of nearing the top of a bubble. Right.
Yeah.
When you go into a taxi and taxi driver is telling you about AI, then you're probably at the top of a bubble.
Yeah.
So we clearly have this overvaluation, but nobody can tell you when it really pops, because sometimes the irrationality of people is far more than we would sometimes expect. But it definitely will. In fact, if you look at the Buffett Indicator, which has been a long time, essentially process of understanding whether or not a market is overvalued, is if the stock market is more than 100% of the GDP of that country. And the US right now, the stock market is about 240% of the GDP of the country. In fact, the AI sector, just the stocks related to AI, is worth more than the total GDP of the country. So I think that's a relatively bearish sign that correction is coming.
And maybe before the correction is coming, Anthropic is coming. Anthropic is planning an IPO. We see a fast growth. We see a huge valuation, and we see enterprise AI. We see not only cloud. There is a lot more in Anthropic, but the question is, what are investors really buying?
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit worried about this sector. That I think Anthropic, if it goes IPO, it will release information about how this industry is being financed today, and actually maybe becomes the needle that pops the bubble, right? And I know people have been saying, look how quick this industry is growing, because you look at Anthropic revenues, early this year, they were at 10 billion ARR, which is annualized run rate, which just means that this week that their revenue went to a certain number, and you multiply that times 52 weeks. I actually don't think that those numbers are very representative, because recent data came out that said, even though right now they say they have a $70 billion run rate, their total revenue for the first half of the year was only about $16 billion.
Oh.
Right. There's a very big gap between total revenue versus run rate. And the thing that they also don't talk about is what is the profitability. And the profitability is that they're losing somewhere around $3 to $4 billion per quarter. So if your revenues and your losses, you're making 18 or 16 billion dollars in the first half, but you're losing, $8 or $10 billion in the first half. that doesn't seem like a very profitable business. And also, this is not accounting for a lot of forward payments that doesn't get reflected in these costs, because things like model training is actually amortized over years, whereas the spend happens right now. Right. So we really need to dig a little bit deeper in terms of understanding the real economics of AI model makers and AI labs, because and as you've probably read in my prior the AGI Windfall Mirage paper, I don't believe that is where the value will accrue. Even though everybody thinks that, this year they're going to 100 billion by the end of the year in ARR, by next year there'll be $1 trillion, and the year after there'll be $10 trillion, and the year after that they would be bigger than the entire GDP of the world. Right? This is what you hear on podcasts like Alvin, that they say that this trend will continue forever. And unfortunately, we live in the real world where that doesn't happen. And in fact, if you look at what happened recently with some news now, it looks like the OpenAI has actually caught back up to Anthropic, is now overtaking Anthropic in terms of revenues and users again. So I think the expectation that Anthropic will be continuing the trend that they have is going to be very questionable.
Okay. But I think they have one joker, and this is because right now our company, we use more and more Claude, and it is quite cheap right now. But what will happen in a few weeks? And if they say, okay, the license, so it costs you the double, or it will cost you much more. So I think that's they are in a perfect position then, because we are more or less addicted then to this service.
Yeah, so you're addicted to it right now because the prices are affordable. If the prices do go up, most people will look for alternatives. And when you have GLM 5.3, when you have Kimi 3, when you have DeepSeek 4, all of these services right now, based on the tests, are within 2% of the capabilities. And last week they just came out with the DeepSeek harness, which now essentially does everything that Cloud Code does, but it's completely free. You can download it, and the price of operating this is essentially the price of electricity, or it's in the pennies per million tokens versus tens of dollars per million tokens. Right? That's a two orders of magnitude difference in some cases. When your cost is spending $50-$60, it's fine. But when your cost is spending $50,000 per month, or in some cases millions of dollars per month, to go from millions of dollars to thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, people switch.
The US, they are dominating the big AI models like Claude, like OpenAI, and so on, especially here in Germany. And then we have another player, we have China, and they have a strength in manufacturing and robotics, autonomous cars, drones, factories. And what do you think? America wins the digital AI and China is winning the physical AI?
Yeah, so I think the physical side is a much clearer question right now, or a clearer answer, in the sense of 90+% of robotics, humanoid robotics last year was coming from Chinese companies, right? In fact, none of the U.S. labs right now, or European robot makers, humanoid robot makers, are shipping in volume in commercial sense. Only China right now is doing it, and even in China, there's only 2 to 3 companies that account for 80% of total Chinese shipments, even though there's more than 150 robot makers in China. So I feel like there is a bubble in that space, and there will be consolidation, particularly in China. It'll go down from triple digits to double digits very soon. Probably in single digits maybe within the next 2 years. So, I thought your first question is, has China won? Not necessarily long term, but at least they are very much in the lead. And given that they have the entire supply chain and the ecosystem around hardware manufacturing, I don't see them losing that lead. In fact, right now, America robot makers are actually going to China to buy parts and smuggle it back, because recently there was new restrictions forbidding Chinese materials to be brought into America, and Chinese robots to be sold in America.
Yeah.
So they're trying to protect the market, but in some ways it's actually hindering the domestic robot makers here. Actually, and so on your second question about digital intelligence, I think digital intelligence, nobody will win, because it is a free good, and just like electricity. Nobody won electricity. Nobody really wins anything that is a global public good. In fact, the more valuable these things get is when there's more standardization, when there's more cross-pollination. So I think with the prevalence of open source and the capabilities of open source models today, everybody will win the digital side.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So let's have a look at the next few months, not the next year's forecast for the next years, and not 2030. What are you watching most closely?
In terms of the AI space or any technology space.
What are the headlines of the next few weeks or few months before Christmas?
I think one of the news that came out last week is quite interesting. Is that the first cancer vaccine was created. The fact that now it's and cancer, just to give you a little background, cancer is different than a normal virus in the sense of a cancer is actually your own cells, so it has to be personalized. Every single cancer vaccine has to be based on your own cells and your own genetics, otherwise it gets rejected, right? So from that perspective, essentially personalized medicine is now started, the fact that we can do that, this has massive implications over healthcare, because right now, at least in America, more than I think 10 or 15% of total spend is going into the healthcare sector, and that's a massive burden on the spend, particularly when the last year accounts for over 80% of total healthcare costs. Right. So if we can solve some of these issues, that money can then be put into infrastructure and other things that makes quality of life better and help provide social safety nets for the potential displacement issues that we keep talking about. I think
good news.
Yeah.
It is the really fantastic news. I think it's about skin cancer.
Yeah.
And that we have progress, that we have a breakthrough here. And so more has to come, more will come. And I think that could be fantastic.
Yeah. And so if you look at that, where did that value accrue? That accrued to the drug maker, right? Not to the labs. And here's the other thing to remember is that for specialized use cases, whether you're talking about law, or you're talking about medicine, or drug discovery, you don't need a multi-trillion parameter model. You don't need mythos to do those. You actually want specialized, personalized models that are custom to that industry, trained on the industry, so it doesn't make you poetry while it makes you new medicine. You don't need something that does both. And most of these models are actually very small. Drug discovery models are usually hundreds of millions of parameters, or maybe small numbers of billions of parameters, not trillions of parameters. So when people think that, because I have the best language model, now I can make the best drugs, I think we need to separate those two concepts.
And I think what is really interesting, in this time, you do not need a big company. You do not need a lot of money, because one example is a friend of mine. He's a physician, and he's coming together with 5 other guys, and they are building a laser weapon, and they can shoot drones within 500 meters with a laser weapon. And it's pretty new, and they have done it by themselves. Only 5 people, and they have a breakthrough in this technology.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think this is where technology and AI can really help new startups, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of when you're starting at a greenfield, you don't have existing processes and workflows to change, which is the hardest part of implementing and adapting to AI. It's not the technology, right? Based on the report I wrote earlier this year at the Stanford Enterprise AI Playbook, 80-90% of issues were completely not technology related. So when you're a small company, you can build everything around AI, and that makes you significantly more efficient, 10 times more efficient. But if you already have an existing company of 100,000 people, to then implement it, you have to get people to change how they work, and changing people takes time and takes a lot of work, as you know. So
I know that. So, and Alvin, we are just finishing our show, and as always, we have at least a final question. What is on your mind? What do you want to tell us? What is very interesting in your mind?
I mean, the thing the last week or two, I've been preparing for my trip to Burning Man, and this year at Burning Man, I'm doing a economic research. I am trying to evaluate if the gifting economy of Burning Man and the culture there of kind of commodification of non monetary exchange is maybe a proto-economic model for a post-scarcity AI future, right, or AGI future. And I'm really intrigued by this because I feel like we are potentially moving to a world where AI and robotics and AI assisted biology is going to make a lot of the productivity work that we've spent our last 1,000 years building, doing that for us for free. And it allows us to be then refocused on things that matter more to our society. Things like relationship with each other, art and music and expression, right? Which is what a lot of what Burning Man is about. So I'm really looking forward to see if I can either confirm or maybe I guess debunk whether or not this type of a model is something that would extend to a broader future beyond the 80,000 people in the middle of a desert. So
that sounds wonderful. That sounds really very interesting and amazing. And I would love if you will tell us on the stage of the Big Bang AI Festival what you have seen, what you have felt, and what do you predict for our future? In a nutshell, what does Burning Man does for me?
yeah. Actually, we can have a nice little cozy session about that sometime during the festival. So, or during
I love it. But before we see us again, because it's 2.5 weeks, and I hope after Burning Man we have another show, and then Berlin is showing up, is coming, and thank you everybody for watching us. If you have any question, please send us an email. And thank you, Alvin. And I wish you a wonderful trip to, I think it's in Nevada, or where is it?
Yes, Nevada. It's it's called Black Rock City, Nevada. It's actually a new city that gets built and destroyed every year. And when it's existing, it's the third largest city in Nevada. Right. 80,000 people. Yes.
And if it is destroyed, everything is clean after that, right? Because everybody is caring about everything, right?
That is actually the one thing that really surprised me when I went last year was that everybody really cared about this concept of leave no trace. You take out everything you bring. Anytime somebody sees a piece of garbage on the floor, they just pick it up, they put it in their pocket, and then they take it with them. And people are very, very serious about this. It's not just a saying; it's actually being practiced by everybody who's there. And that's amazing when you have 80,000 people and no garbage, and there's no garbage cans anywhere in the city, right?
No garbage, no passion, no drugs, no alcohol.
Well, I don't know about the other parts.
Thank you very much. That was the Big Bang Tech Report. See you soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching us.
Take care. See you in Berlin.
See you. Bye-bye.